Good morning. Let's talk about last Saturday. Outlaw Radio, Magic Matt Allen. Another good time, for the most part. I got to meet Hollywood royalty, man. Sat next to Robert Carradine for 3 hours. Robert Carradine was, he's been in everything. Well, he's been in a lot of stuff. You guys know who he is. You can't miss his face. He was the head nerd in Revenge of the Nerds, 1984. He was in a great film, one of my all-time favorite films as a kid, and still today holds up, with John Wayne, called The Cowboys. Not to be mixed up with Jack Lemmon in Cowboy, which is another great movie. Glenn Ford and that just popped into my brain there, and Jack Lemmon. That's a great movie, The Cowboy. But The Cowboys, great movie. If you have kids, anywhere from the age of 9 to 15 or 16 or so, I highly recommend that you get that film for them to watch, because it will stick with them, probably, because it's about boys going through the transition of becoming men, and it's depicted in a time period of when people grew up quicker anyhow. That's the beauty of it. That's why it seems so much more realistic in a way. At that time period, young men were doing what men did. People grew up a lot faster. It wasn't uncommon for people to be married at 14 years old. So it's pretty wild. Great movie. So we're having a good time getting to know each other, and I'm always cautious when I first meet people, and in particular, anybody in Hollywood, because it's a crapshoot. It's a 50-50 thing, man. They're either going to be cool or they're not. And if they're not, then, you're always running that risk of dealing with a narcissist who's full of themselves or whatever. And this guy isn't like that. It is a weird thing, though, because when you're around those people, they're there for a reason, talk about themselves and their things. So you can't always judge a person based on being in an interview with them, right? That's what they're there for. You have to actually hang out with the person. But this guy is cool. And I told him, it's so funny, I felt silly afterwards reflecting on it. I looked at him at one point and went, man, I'm so glad to meet you because you're actually cool. I don't know how often you hear something like that. Most of the time people are just kissing his ass, which that might sound like that. That's not what I was doing. Anyhow, cool dude. It was funny. He sat down. The first 25 minutes or so of last week's show was a rehash or a replay of the first segment of the previous week's show, where we had this interview with the guy from, and his name escapes me at the moment, from Play Misty for Me. And then, we get into talking with Robert. And he wanted a stogie. He's like, where's a stogie? And Matt brought him one. And I said to him, hey, man, I got to tell you, I learned myself, this is what I need. I need a stogie. And I like to drink, but the stogie's the big thing. It's just the right kind of buzz. He says, well, you know why? He says that when you smoke a cigar, it knocks all the pent-up THC that's in your body from all the years of smoking it. And it just kind of knocks it free and goes back into your system. He's bullshitting me, obviously. It's not like I believe that. But it sounded so, funny, plausible. Like the joke, it's like a plausible joke, that I was like, that's cool, man. I'm using that. So now you've heard that story. I'll tell you another thing that we talked about, in between on the breaks. You guys know I'm a watch guy. And he was wearing a Rolex that it's got 3 dials on. I guess it's a chronometer. And he was telling me about it. So I guess 8 years ago he had an accident. Excuse me. Pretty bad car wreck. I haven't actually looked it up yet. I've been meaning to. And the watch got wrecked. And I think he said it was his son, maybe? Actually sent it to Rolex and they rebuilt it. And he said it was kind of a rare watch. So that was neat. I got to show off my micro brand, gigantic 50 millimeter case, Aragon, with all the complications in it and everything. That was cool. but just a really nice guy and a fun time, you know, for the most part. I got this, there's a funny thing with Matt's brother Marty, and people pointed out to me, I'm a pretty nice guy, but he's been like kind of cutting me off and stomping on me and goofing on me, and that's the sort of thing, it doesn't like bother me too much really. It bothers Matt a lot. It did bother me Saturday because I'm very quick. I'm quick-witted. My mind works, man. You got to give me a moment and just trust where I'm going with something, because it could be very entertaining. And Robert was talking about this accident, and I wanted to get into that a little bit because I knew I could have made it kind of funny. And I made this comment where I said, well, I was passively suicidal for, you know, a couple decades. I mean, the truth is, it was more like 30 years trying to passively kill myself just by lifestyle. I wasn't super happy. If you ran into me, I seemed pretty happy, but I know what the heck I was doing with myself. And that's a whole other, I could probably do a whole video just on that subject. There's darkness to it, but there's humor as well, and then certain things happen. But anyhow, he just stomped on me. He's like, don't we have a guest here? And Matt tore into him, and it looked kind of contentious. And then Robert, being the consummate professional he is, you can imagine, I think he directs as well. I didn't get into that with him. But he probably sized that up as a problem, and he injected some humor, which diffused it, but it also took everything away from what I wanted to get into, which was kind of a bummer. So at the break, I talked to Maury. I was like, dude, I wish you wouldn't do that. He's like, well, I thought, give me a chance, man. I know what I'm doing. It's fine. I've only been here 6 weeks, but I've been talking to human beings for, you know, coming up on 57 years. Well, 56 years. Wasn't talking right away, you know. I didn't come out of the womb like, hey, you know, hey, Doc, that smack wasn't hard enough, Doc. Should hit me on the other butt cheek. Would have been more efficient. So, anyhow, I don't know how this is going to work out with him, because I don't know if that's just their thing and they think that's what they want to have with the arguing or messing with each other and all that kind of stuff. But personally, I don't like it. That's just me. I don't like playing grab ass. I mean, this is a thing. I didn't think I was going to get into this, but I'll hang out with people, like, and I've had a lot of different types of people I've hung out, different cliques, you know. It only ever lasts so long because inevitably there's always one person in the group that's kind of a douchebag, right? That's just how it is. And it doesn't take the 4 years of college psych for me that I had I don't need that to understand what's going on, right? It's, for whatever reason, I think he probably just feels threatened by me being there or something, I guess. I don't know. He wouldn't admit it, you know. He's got a little bit of a narcissist tendency to himself there. And I don't mind him. I actually kind of like the guy. When he's cool, he's cool. But it's getting old with me. And this is a weird situation for me on the radio show because I really like Matt. I like getting to know him, and it's fun, and it's neat to meet somebody like Robert Carradine. You know, that was kind of cool. But I can walk away from it, which is what I would normally do in this situation, because it's happened to me before. You guys know that follow me for the bicycle stuff. Like, I kind of walked away from that group of people, and I like almost all of them. But this one dude showed up, and we got along fine at first because we have some other mutual friends from other groups, like the hot rod group and the motorcycle thing. When I was doing that, he would show up to some of those parties. And he's a pretty cool dude until you get to know him. And if he feels threatened or something, he lashes out. So he was just being a douchebag, and I confronted him on it in front of all the fellas, you know. I was like, dude, what is your problem? And his answer to me was stupid. It made no sense. So I knew that that was a lie, what he was telling me. There was something else going on that he didn't want to talk about. So, but it didn't change him from being a douchebag around me. And now, if I've confronted you and I've said something, I'm nice. I'm a nice guy. I don't just walk up to people and go, hey, motherfucker. Unless I don't know you. But if I know you, if I spent time with you, I'm really polite because I want to make sure. I don't just go around assuming I'm right about everything. Maybe I've done something. Maybe I've said something. You know, I can understand, as I've mentioned already, my presence in a situation is enough for some people to get upset for whatever reason. That's not my problem. That's their problem. But if they're treating me poorly, they're making it my problem. I'm going to have to deal with it at some point. And there's multitudes of ways to deal with it. I've been ignoring it. To be honest with you, it didn't even bother me at all. It only started bothering me this past week more so, and I suppose reflecting upon it, it's because I'm getting to know this dude, right? Hollywood royalty. His whole family's in the business. His dad was like in 280 movies. So that was the thing. It seemed more to me like he was trying to make me look bad in front of a guy that I'm impressed by, which is rare to me. I'm not impressed by most human beings. My dad always said, everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time. Nobody's better than anybody else. Nobody's more special. Yeah, it was he was doing this. And then even outside, he made another stupid comment. So I'm like, okay, you know, it's easy for me. I can play the game. It would be very easy for me to goof back, you know, play the same game. I don't want to do that. I feel like it's kind of beneath me, and it's like kids. I'm not a child. The problem for me is, like, if somebody pushes my buttons enough and I've said something, then the next step is I end up cracking you in the side of the head. And I don't want that to happen. So that's the thing. And I didn't mean to go on talking about that. I'm not that bothered by it, but it was in my mind a little bit. Like Sunday morning, I got up really early in the morning and used the head. And for some reason, that got into my head, and I laid there, and I couldn't go back to sleep thinking about it. I was like, oh, man, this jerk is in my head now. That's not cool. I don't need that shit. But, yeah, so the show was good, and it was a lot of fun, and it was interesting to me because I could tell with Matt, like, you know, he usually does his thing where he's talking about a lot of stuff going on, and he'll have a guest on, and he'll give the guest a couple minutes over the course of 3 hours when you think about it. But this time it was all about Bob, and it was so cool because you could tell that they're friends. They've hung out together and done all this cool stuff. So to me, that was fun to watch that. And you could also tell that his presence lit everyone up. I was pretty quiet overall on that episode because everybody else was, even Tattoo Dave was chiming in a lot. For me being there only 6 times, that was the most I've ever heard him chime in. So I think we were all smitten, I suppose, with his presence, and that was super cool. He's just one of those dudes that, you know, if you're around him, you think he's cool enough to be like, well, you know, that's a sort of guy you can hang out with. People say that about me. The problem is that if you come off that way and people do like you, they do start contacting you. The problem is, and I'm sure he's way busier than I am, but I'm so busy, I don't have that kind of time. I can't, and I have a lot of conversations throughout the day as it is, to the point where it hurts my ability to get work done, which is Monday morning, and I've been dragging ass on this project. So this is a big week for me. I got to really put some time in on this. But, so you can imagine a guy like that, right? I mean, he's got his own family. He's got what he does. And I mean, imagine the interesting people that guy knows. Why does he want to even get to know anybody that he's just met, any of the fellas, you know, hanging out in there? And I'm finding, too, with these guys, well, the one guy in particular, you know, if he meets somebody, has a conversation with them, that's a buddy in his mind. Like, that's not a buddy. That's a guy that you talk to, you know, a couple times. But, yeah, it's interesting. This whole thing is interesting to me. But I'm getting egged on by my friends, and I know so many interesting people. I've got to start doing some interviews here on this channel. So the idea is going to be just to set this camera up with the mic, with me sitting next to somebody who's having some conversations and having some fun with it. I just got to make the time for it. So stay tuned on that. I hope you guys watch the show and enjoy it. The reason I already knew, I didn't know he was going to be there. When I got home, I saw that Matt had posted on my Facebook page, which I don't go on my computer anymore because I haven't figured out the password situation. I only look at it on my phone, and I don't check it often. And by the way, if you know me and I don't get back to you on things, I have all the notifications shut off on my phone, so I'm not constantly being distracted by the phone. Even the ringer doesn't work a lot of the time. I have it off. So until I pick up the phone and look at it, I don't know. And then I look at it and I might see it, but then there's 3 or 4 other things that maybe are more pressing or whatever, and I got to get to those things or make a phone call, and then you end up getting lost in the shuffle. So I apologize. And by the way, this thing about not apologizing or apologizing, making you seem weak or whatever, I don't know what that's about. You should always apologize. Be polite. I'm a kind person. Be polite, be kind, right? But have a plan to kill everyone you meet. That's General Mattis. That's kind of how my brain works. I'm nice to everybody. I'll be really nice. I'll be overly nice, overly polite. Thank you, please, and thank you. I will apologize all the time, profusely. You guys see it here. But just there's a tipping point. And I go from being super polite to bam! in a split second. if that's what's needed, So I don't like going there. It's a funny place to be. It's scary. That adrenaline thing that gets into you. And you're just, oh my God, it actually feels good because you just got this animal thing pumping through your body. And it feels great, actually. It feels awesome. It feels so good that it scares me because it's a place where you find yourself, if you get addicted to that, then you start living a lifestyle because you're addicted to that feeling that ultimately is unhealthy for you, and it's unhealthy for your relationships and all of that. So you have to control that. Jordan Peterson has a quote about, dangerous men. You're not truly dangerous if you're harmless. I mean, I'm paraphrasing here. So if you're not capable of great violence, then you're harmless. Right? A dangerous person is a guy who's capable of it, but keeps it in check, man. Keeps that shit under control. So, I don't know. But that's what happens to me. I'm sorry, I'm going all over the place. But it's a bummer, man, because I've had really good core groups of friends and had really good times. But I end up pulling away from a lot of these great situations because there's one guy that's pushing me, and in my mind I know that if he pushes me the wrong way, it's going to go sideways, and then I have to confront him. And most of the time, whenever that's happened, people are automatically they get scared, and then they start apologizing. And then I feel guilty for scaring them and making them apologize. But the thing is they're the one who drove me to that point where I lose it, And that's always crazy, because then you got the people that are gaslighting your ass, right? They're pushing you, and you're nice. You finally blow up on them, and then everybody looks at you like you're the crazy person, like you've got a bad attitude or you can't control yourself. For months, this asshole's been pushing my buttons. I'll tell you a couple stories, maybe. Not looking at the time there. I remember just being, even in the Marines, man. I yelled at a major. I yelled at my sergeant. I told my sergeant one day, if they kept, I'll tell this story in detail because I've told it before, but I'll do a video just on this story. I gotten busted. It's a long friggin' story. But I remember after they just pushed me to the nth degree and it turned out to be nothing but bullshit, I ran down to my sergeant and I said, Zamora, get over here. I'm talking to you. And I'm a friggin' private at the time. And the whole section was in formation. And I took him out behind the formation, behind this van, just on the other side. And I'm yelling at him. I'm a 19-year-old kid, private, but I just been pushed. I said, if you guys do this anymore, you push me anymore, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to friggin' kill somebody. It's going to be your fucking fault. And I'm yelling this at the top of my lungs. And you know what happened? I got my rank back the next day. Crazy. So I remember being on the job after I got out of the service, and I was building a house with this dude, and I was, good carpenter, and this guy might have had a year or more to it, but these big dudes are always funny to me. Big bullies, guys well over 6 feet tall. A lot of them, I've mentioned this before, because of their stature, their whole life, they didn't have to get in a lot of fights, you know. Their stature would mean, you would think, that they're at least powerful enough where if they knew what they were doing, they could really screw somebody up. But without having the experience, they've got a little thing in the back of their head where they're actually afraid. So they, in order to avoid it, they come off as being something that they're not, you know. And I had this guy on the job one day, and I don't remember the whole shtick, but he was pushing my buttons, right? We worked together for a couple weeks. And it was a job. I had this job with this contractor. I bounced around a lot. That's another good story. All the jobs I had learning my trade back in Jersey. It was very much like my dad being a baker, jumping from all these places. But this dude was just kind of screwing with me. And then one day, he said something. The boss came by, and the boss loved me because I was efficient, getting things done. I was good-natured, all that stuff. And he ratted me out on something, which wasn't even true. And it really pissed me off. I was like, dude, what is your fucking problem? And he starts giving me this grief. I dropped my tool belt right there in the middle of this big house. It's a mansion we're building in like Rumson. Right down the street from, like, I think Bruce Springsteen's house. I dropped my tools and I go, let's go. And he's looking at me like he realized he fucked up. He's like, hey, Mike, I don't want any problems. What do you mean you don't want any problems with me? Are you sure you don't want any problems with me? Because for the last 2 weeks, you've been acting like you wanted to start a problem with me. Dig. And now you just pull this crap. Oh, so I got pissed. He won't fight me. Now what do? I can't work with him anymore. I just challenged this guy. Like I'm going to put my tools back on and go back to work like nothing happened? No, I took my tools. I walked off the friggin' job. I get in my car. I'm driving out. The boss is driving. He goes, where are you going? I said, I'm quitting. He goes, oh, dude, you can't quit. I need you. I said, either I go or that big asshole goes. And he didn't know how to react to it. So I'll come back tomorrow and pick up my check, man. I'm done. I'm not working with that guy. And that's how I get. So I don't like to get to that point. I'll be in a group of people, like I said, be one guy that starts making me think that way. And maybe I'm crazy. Maybe what you're seeing here on film is me demonstrating that I'm nuts. I don't know how you see it. I can't control what you think. But I will get to a point where if I start having those thoughts like, oh man, I want to crack this guy in the head, then I pull away because I don't want that to actually happen, right? It's when I pull away, I see it as I'm doing it for the benefit of everybody else. That's it. So I don't know if every Marine or every guy like that. And by the way, I think that there's a huge portion of people that go into service, and in the Marine Corps in particular, I think you're born to it. You know what you're getting into. You know what they're going to do. You're going there for a specific reason. You want to have these experiences. But if you talk about it openly, you sound like a crazy person to the people who don't think that way. But the reality is, there's a pretty good percentage of men, and there's some women out there, who think that way. They're just natural born warriors. Like it's just, that's in their brain. It's there. I like to think of it as a past life thing, because even if you don't want to believe in reincarnation or whatever, your DNA, the blood pumping through your veins, comes from your ancestors. And somewhere in the past, everybody alive today has an ancestor that has killed people, gone to war, done that stuff. Survival of the fittest. It's the only way you procreate and keep the bloodline going. You got to be tough to survive. So if you go back far enough, that's in you. And then, you peter out of it. Times get a little bit easier. Less people have to do that. And there's this thing, man, 3%. A lot of you don't know what 3% is. I had to look at my fingers, make sure I was holding up 3 of them. On average, it only takes 3% of the population to stand up and fight a war. Even the Revolutionary War, it was only about 3% of the population that actually pulled their boots on, grabbed a musket, and went out there and did what needed to be done. And it worked. So, these are all just things to keep in your brain here. Anyhow, hopefully everything will be fine. And Matt will probably watch this and go, oh no, Mike's a psycho. We can't have him here. I'm not, man. I'm a nice guy. I'm a nice guy to have around. And I'm sure everything will hopefully peter out with that. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. And I'm okay with it. you know, it's not like I would be losing any income from it. But it is fun. I'm still, it's very cool meeting this Bobby Carradine. It's a super cool dude. If you're into him at all, and the Revenge of the Nerds and the Cowboys and his brother David, and he tells stories about being on the set of Kung Fu, and Gary Busey comes up, and it was just a great conversation. He's one of those dudes that's lived a life, and you could just let him talk. Like that guy, he could be doing a podcast where he's just telling stories if that's what he wanted to do. And a man's man kind of dude, you know. Here's the thing, I'm getting kind of long on the video, I'll end it here, but there is a funny thing on this thing too, with talking about the vagina so much. I honestly don't think about that often. I honestly don't. I got other things in my brain. I got to make a living and survive and all that. I've had my fill, man. I mean, you know, if it comes, great, but I'm not out there looking for it. But it is funny to me that guys that are my age are talking about it so much, like when we were kids. It is a little weird to me, because when I'm hanging out with my bros, we're not talking about it that much. It comes up like, hey, you dating anybody? What's the latest thing? Or maybe you'll tell a story. But for it to come up so often in that way, it's interesting to me. I don't know. I really am not thinking about it that often, which is why I ain't getting it either. Anyhow, we'll see how this goes. It's a fun ride. I'm enjoying the ride. Hopefully when I do these videos, I'm not shooting myself in the foot and pissing people off, but it's not my intention. So if it does, that's on you, man. I don't know what the hell this video is about, but again, I'll put the link down below, and you guys have a great day. Thanks for being here. I do appreciate it. It's fun. It's fun to watch the comments and then see the numbers grow on my channel, see what I could do with it. Because now that there's enough people here, I think we're coming up on, I think we'll hit 7,000 subscribers pretty soon here, and that's a big deal for me. It's not like I'm a girl with a nice set of boobs flashing my cleavage or something. I'm just here talking to you, and it's fun. It's really kind of interesting. So I figure once I get enough people, I can maybe talk about things that are more important a little bit and actually get an audience for it. I don't know. I don't know why anybody would think what I think is all that important. But anyhow, as I always say, have a good day. Be kind to one another until it's time to not be kind. And when it's time to not be kind, be very not kind. I'll catch you guys in